Hey, Michelle, how's it going?
Hi, Devin. Good. How are you?
I'm great. Michelle was, we were in school together, and let's see if I can find it right here. I don't know if you guys can see that, or if you're just listening to the audio version, maybe it's this arm. Oh, yeah. You see that right there? Or whatever? That's a rug burn from me and Michelle fighting on the carpet. I don't I don't remember the context of why we were fighting, but me and Michelle had some pretty good fights in our day.
I do have a bruise too on my knee.
Yes, that's right. Michelle, we did damage to each other. So we were really good friends, and I'm very excited to have you on the podcast. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Sure, absolutely. I kind of want to just start the podcast with some unfortunate news. I made a video about this on my YouTube channel yesterday, and I want to spend a little bit of time today talking about it. But today is Sunday, March 27th. We're filming this, and on Friday, one of the people that me and Michelle went to Mauna Loa helicopters together, but we were at different times, and one of the students that I was there with, she actually passed away in a helicopter accident on Friday, and we found out over the course of Friday night and yesterday. We don't want to speculate about what happened yet, but it really hits close to home knowing that all of my friends, all of these people that we know in the aviation industry, it could happen to any one of us. And we're so comfortable with what we do, and we've been doing it for years, and we learn really in depth about accidents and things that can happen, especially in Robinson helicopters. And then things like this can happen. So, Michelle expresses this, all of us, but our thoughts and feelings are with the person's family and everyone involved. It's always tragic when it happens, especially when it's so close. And we're gonna know people within the industry who pass. It's just bound to happen. So we take care of each other. We have good times. We fight on the carpet. And we just, it's a small, tight-knit community. So we're thinking about that person, and we're thinking about each other. But Michelle, without getting too much into the sad stuff, I don't want to speculate about what happened in the accident, but it's kind of a good time for us to talk about Robinson helicopters. So in America, there's a couple different big helicopter companies that people do their training in. Number one, definitely Robinson. And then you've got like Instrom, Cabri is coming up. Schweitzer is a big one. Anyone else I'm missing? Any other types?
No, I think you got the main ones.
Okay. So, yeah, we do most people do the training. I think Robinson by far is the number one helicopter that we do training in. Talk to me about your journey into helicopters. So a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and I know you did some training in other helicopters, I think before you started really flying Robinsons or that. So talk to me about that.
Okay, so I'm from Sweden, and I grew up in a restaurant family, not connected to aviation at all. But yeah, I basically started working super early with restaurants, and whenever I was going to pick high school, my initial thought was to do, because in Sweden you pick your program for high school. So if you want to be a carpenter, you can do carpenting school. If you want to do further studies, like later on, you pick more academic studies. But I wanted to do restaurant. And my mom and dad said that, you can do whatever you want except restaurant. And so I was like, okay, what am I going to do? And I was watching Ally McBeal when I was younger. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's this woman in Boston. She's working as a lawyer. So I was like, oh, that sounds fun. That looks fun. So I'm going to do academic studies, have good grades. I'm going to do that. And then in high school at some point, I was helping out my parents with, like, I had to go to the lawyer for some paperwork, and I went to this law firm, and it looked super boring. I was like, okay, maybe not that. And at the time, I also had my godmother, her 2 daughters were working as flight attendants. And I was looking up to them a lot. So I was like, oh, that looks like they're having the time of their lives. Also, my parents, when they were young, they traveled a lot. So I always wanted to travel. And but then I was also like, I don't know if I want to work as a flight attendant. And about the same time, I also saw this in the newspaper. It was about this girl in Sweden. She was 21 years old. And she was the youngest one flying like a big jet aircraft, fixed wing aircraft. So I was like, oh, that sounds fun. So I was just thinking that, yeah, oh, I'm going to be a pilot. But I didn't really feel stressed about it. I still want to live my life and travel and make money because I knew that I couldn't afford pilot school. So I traveled all over. And then when I was 22 years old, I was like, okay, I better start studying now. And I went with my dad to take a discovery flight in a fixed wing. And I was sold. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And at the school, they had it was like an open day for everybody who wanted to do discovery flights. And they also had a psychiatrist at the place. And in Sweden, you have to take an aptitude test before you start pilot school. So she told us about this aptitude test, and that was kind of the first step to know if you were even fit to become a helicopter pilot. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go do that. And I'm from Gothenburg in Sweden. So and the aptitude test you could only do in Stockholm. So whenever I booked that time to go and do that test, I brought my best friend with me. And the whole experience when we went there was just so much fun because we went on this train ride and we bought, last minute tickets, super cheap. And the host of the train, or whatever you call it, came up to us and she was like, well, you girls are in the wrong seat.
I know what you said.
Yeah, you girls are in the wrong seat. We're like, okay. And she showed us the way to first class. So we're like, oh, this is cool. We got first class. Then we came to Stockholm, to the hotel where we were staying. And they upgraded us to a suite, like top suite. And with our own sauna and everything. We're like, oh, this is going good. Went out and did a bunch of things the night before, and everything was just, we passed the Tivoli, and they were like, oh, it's free entrance today. So everything was just working out super good. And the day after, I went to take this aptitude test, and I passed. And then I met my best friend after the test, and she was looking at me, and she was like, wait, Michelle, did you wear that shirt, because I had a button shirt. So she was like, did you wear that on your aptitude test? And I was like, yeah, why? And she was like, well, it's inside out. So,
oh my god.
So she was like, oh, you passed this aptitude test, but you don't know how to dress yourself. So so that was the start of it. And I didn't really know how to finance pilot school, but I was kind of like, well, I just had to figure it out. So I worked a lot to save money, and at the same time, I asked my grandmother if I could lend money from her. So she said, yeah, sure. And then during this time where I was saving money and I kind of rented out my apartment, and the thing was this fixed wing school, it was part in Sweden, part in San Diego. And I had been traveling a lot, so I was like, oh, San Diego, that's perfect. I have relatives that live there. I can live with them. I can do this pilot school. And then right when I left, my grandmother had a stroke. and we had no papers signed, nothing. So we had to have a legal guardian for her. And we were like, oh, of course I will get approved to lend money from my grandma because I'm her only grandchild, and it's just a loan. But they wouldn't let me lend the money. So I started pilot school in San Diego, but I had to go home, and I rented out my apartment. I quit my job. I had to move back with my dad, and I was like, okay, I don't know what to do now because I was so focused on doing this pilot thing. So I actually started as a flight attendant. And when I was, and then I got the job as a flight attendant, had a lot of fun, and I figured I at least get to be in the industry. So I worked there trying to save some money, trying to figure everything out. And then I realized that this is probably not for me because I want to fly more hands-on. I don't want to fly a big aircraft. So then I was kind of stuck again. I didn't know what to do, and I had one of my coworkers. She was dating a helicopter pilot, and she told me that, oh, what about helicopters? And I had never thought about it because the helicopter industry in Sweden isn't that big. So I was like, well, that sounds like fun, but it's going to cost even more money. So I was kind of like dialed into helicopters, but didn't know how to figure it out. And they started the Swedish government decided to fund 14 spots for pilots, for helicopter pilots. So I did like everything I could do in order to pass the test because they had a bunch of tests. So I was just, sitting at home I actually bought like a small little simulator, sat at home, flew the sim, had my boyfriend. He was asking me a bunch of questions to like try to stress me out at the same time as I was doing a bunch of other things. So I did that, and I got one of the spots in 2017. So this was 5 years later. Yeah. So then I started at a school in Sweden called ﷺᴜᴜ Pilottime, which is pretty much Swedish pilot education, and did my commercial rating there. It's called ATP frozen license. So basically all the ATP tests, but it's not going to get released until I have my hours. Then I finished there in 2019. And in Europe, it's more of nobody wants to hire you when you're a new pilot. I finished my commercial, I had like 130 hours. So then I was thinking about the US again, because in Europe you start as a ground crew and you do that for 3 to 5 years and then you might get to fly. And I was 29 at this point, and I was like, no, I already waited for so long to get to fly. Now I just want to do it. So I looked into the US, and I've been in touch with a company, because in Sweden you had to do an internship at the same time. So I talked to this company in Los Angeles about doing an internship, and they said, yeah, sure, you can come here, but we rather see that you're doing your CFI license, because that way we can hire you. I started looking into that, and then I realized that I can't get a visa to work in the US unless I go to a school that is approved. And there was only 2 schools in the US. One was in Oregon, and one was Mauna Loa in Hawaii. So I decided to go to Hawaii, and yeah.
Well, that is I didn't want to interrupt, but I've got so many questions. First off, just because we're in the aviation field and it's cool, talk to me a little bit about being a flight attendant and what was that like?
It was a lot of fun. It was so much fun. I think it's kind of like something in between, being in restaurant and being a pilot, because you're in aviation, but you're still, serving people. And I was working for a charter airline, which is most people that fly charter, they are going on vacation. so they're all happy, most of them. And people that work as flight attendants are usually very flexible. You know, you don't see problems, you see solutions, and there's also a lot of, you know, things that can go wrong, and most of it was medical things. But you know, being on top of it the whole time, being drilled to do all those different emergency procedures. So it was a lot of fun. We got really close. So
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at Michelle's Instagram, she'll tag it at the end. But you go look at her Instagram, and you can see that she obviously had a great time. While you were in flight school in Sweden, talk to me about your experience in flight school there, because a couple weeks ago I had Christina on, who is from Denmark, but she did all of her training in America. So even though she's from a Nordic country, we had that conversation. She did all of her training in America. But talk to me about what it was like doing training in Sweden. What were you flying? What did your day look like? Does it kind of look like how flight school looks in America?
no, so we flew Robinsons as well, mostly. So I flew the R-22 most of my hours. Then I flew the R-44 for my night currency, and then I'm rated on the EC-120. So I flew my last 20 hours in the Eurocopter.
Well, let me ask why. What's the purpose of it? Because it's more expensive. There's no benefit to you. I mean, it's a cool experience, but it's not. It doesn't help you get to where you want to be. Really, it's only 20 hours, and you only have 130 total. So, to me, it sounds like a scam.
Well, I didn't pay for it, so for me, I just took it. You know, it was.
Oh, was this part of the government program where they
Yes.
paid for the 14 people?
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit, that's
Yeah.
pretty sweet.
So yeah.
How was
Fine.
what was it like flying the EC-120? What was your experience like? What did you do? What maneuvers did they have you do?
I mean, I did all the maneuvers that we trained on the Robinson as well. But no, I just remember, now I haven't flown it in, 3 years. So, but I remember it being, you know, feeling super smooth. The hardest thing was to go from a anti-clockwise rotating main rotor to a clockwise one, because you're kind of like mechanically trained to have your left pedal as your power pedal. So that was the hardest part. Also, we were always landing at this ramp, and when you land with the Eurocopter, you kind of sit in front of the skids. So you had to open the door, kind of like look outside as you landed, because you were sit in front of it. So that was the hardest part, but it was super smooth. I really enjoyed it.
So in terms of EASA, what ratings do you have?
Commercial license.
Commercial and a restricted ATP?
Yes.
So when you go back, will your hours convert back? So if you do like 2,000 hours here and then you go back to Sweden, do those hours directly convert?
Yes, they do.
Wow, that's a pretty good gig.
Yeah, but my instrument license won't convert. So I still need to do that one again. My hours count, but I still have to take EASA instrument license.
Okay, so you're going to have to do your instrument there. Now, how does it work there? So in America, we've got like private, commercial, CFI, then you build up your experience to like 2,000 hours or whatever, 1,500 or 2,000 hours, and then you can get into like the cool big turbine jobs, like flying 407s and whatever at 1,500 to 2,000-ish hours there. From what you know in Sweden, is it a similar experience? Like, do most people work as flight instructors, and then how many hours do they need to do those cool jobs? And you said it's a pretty small market, so do those jobs even exist?
So I think it's very divided on how people work their way out. Most of the people I know that have been taking their license for helicopters, most of them decided to do something else because it's harder there, I would say. Usually, some people, they take their instructor license, but in order to be an instructor in Europe, you have to have 250 hours. So it's a lot of hours to pay for before you can start instructing. And weather is usually not as good as it is, here in California or Hawaii. So the hours, they take way longer to long to get your hours. Most people, I would say, would probably go do like ground crew work for 3 to 5 years, and they get to fly a little bit now and then the company that has been hiring them, whenever they need a new pilot, they would pick them first, usually.
So, from what I'm gathering from that is the American route or the FAA pathway to getting to the jobs you want is much more clear, much defined, and honestly, it sounds easier and faster. Is that how you feel?
Yeah.
And that's why you decided to do it?
A little bit as, people that go to the US, they're cheating the system a little bit because we go and we get our hours. And I think a lot of people think that, you should go this hard route. You should work in the industry for this amount of years and gain all this experience not flying. And then, you kind of earned it. But, yeah.
Yeah, it does. I mean, do what you got to do. Now, so let's say this all works out. You build up all your hours here. If you do go back, are you on a green card right now?
No, so I'm on a visa, and I just applied to have it extended for another year.
And are you doing that through a company, or how are you doing that?
Yeah, well, partly I do it through the school. So first you start off on a CPT. So whenever you finish your school, you are allowed to stay for a year on CPT. Then if you work for a company and they sign a letter that you're working there towards your hours to become a licensed ATP pilot, you can apply for an extra year on OPT, it's called.
Okay. So is PT like practical training?
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, so some sort of practical training. So how you're almost done with your first year? Is that the right timing?
Mid-May.
Okay. And do you know if your second year OPT has been extended?
Nope. I don't know.
When do you find out, or is it at the government's will?
Yeah, it's I don't know at all. For Christina, it went super fast. I think she found out in just a few weeks. They say that it can take up to 90 days to find out, but you can't apply, earlier than 90 days before. So, and they say that usually takes about that time. So we'll see.
So that first 1 year, is that one's through Mauna Loa and through the school, and then the second extension is through the company you work for?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. So you got to fly the EC-120 and then the Robinsons, and I kind of mentioned the Robinson thing because everyone knows that. I actually think Robinsons are great helicopters, and obviously the European market, you guys use them as well, so they're a very large global company, and they are great helicopters, and they can be safe. People do 10,000 hours in these helicopters with no problems, so they can be safe. What has your experience been, and have you had any trouble flying these helicopters? And talk to me about your experience with that.
I love flying Robinsons. I think they're super fun to fly, and I feel comfortable flying them. There's going to be issues with all machines you fly. Issues I had, whenever I started working in California, I had a governor failure, like my first month working. So that was, but if you know what to do, it's not a big issue. It's just flying without the governor.
Yeah,
And
I had a governor fail on me as well doing an
yeah,
auto.
it seems like it's super
Yeah.
common because it happens all the time. But yeah, so and then I had to land a helicopter one time down at a parking lot on a tour that I did.
Oh, on a tour? Let's hear this
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, so I was flying. I wasn't supposed to fly that tour that day, but one of the people at the company called me and they were like, "Oh, we got this request for a tour. It's a 1-hour tour, and it's 3 people." So I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll take it." And I went out, and I noticed. So I was flying that tour, then I was supposed to fly another tour afterwards. So I put in full fuel because the people weren't that heavy. But I had 3 people on board and me, and I noticed that whenever I was taking off, I was pulling a lot of power, a lot of manifold pressure, and I was noticing it, but I didn't really react too much because I knew that I was full fuel. It was a hot day, all that. I was leaving the airspace. I was going to go into another airspace, and I called him up, and I didn't get a response. So I was like, okay, well, I'm pretty early. Like, I'm just gonna call them again. Called them again. I heard them, but they obviously didn't hear me. So I was like, oh, that's weird. I called them like 4 or 5 times.
So you're going from like one sector to another sector. You're like trying
Yeah.
to call approach or something.
I was just gonna pass their airspace. So then they didn't answer. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna stay outside their airspace for a little bit until they answer.
Was it a Charlie or a Delta or a Bravo or
It
what?
was a Delta.
Okay.
So I just stayed outside, and then they have split frequencies. So I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll just try their other frequency because maybe they have some issues with their frequency. So I tried the other frequency, and as I was switching to the other frequency, I noticed that I got low rotor RPM. And at the same time as I got this low rotor RPM, I saw my engine tach just went all the way to the bottom. So
Oh my god.
yeah, I panicked there for a second, and lower collective, all that, and then I noticed that I could still hear my engine. So I was like, well, I still have my engine, and then the tach just went up and down, and I was like, crap. So we have all these things where it is, land as soon as practical, land immediately. If it's just a tach failure, you land as soon as practical. But I also noticed, I'm pulling a lot of power. I have low rotor RPM. I can't see my engine tach, and nobody hears me. So, and I was about to, I was right in an industrial area. I was about to go over the water. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna, go out there. So I was like, you have so many thoughts in such a short amount of time. And so I was thinking, should I go back to the airspace where I was? Or should I go back to the other airspace? And I, squawked, and nobody contacted me. And I tried to make the calls again, and nobody
What'd you squawk? 7600?
Yes.
Nice.
Nobody came back to me. I was like, okay, should I go into this airspace where they have, like 3 runways, a lot of traffic, without, and going there was a little bit of a, flight as well. And I know that it's so congested in LA. So I knew I was flying there basically every day. So I knew that there's no landing spots. And I had this really big parking lot right below me. So I just took the decision that, and I was actually at the Robinson course just like a couple months earlier. And one of the pilots there told us, he was like, it's so funny with helicopters that, you have an aircraft that can basically land anywhere. But still, pilots decide not to land because, they want to push it. So his words kind of echoed in my ears. And so I was just thinking, okay, I'm just going to go down and land here. And so I told my passengers, I'm like, sorry, we're going to have to go down and land here. and I don't think they really understood like what was happening. So yeah, I went down there and landed, and yeah. But I was never, I was never really scared of flying the helicopter because we do so much training on it. I knew what to do in case my engine would fail. No, but I was more scared of getting in trouble because I landed at somebody's property.
Yeah. So what happened? So you landed, and then what?
So I landed, and I think my passengers, like I said, I don't think they didn't understand what was happening really. So I think they were more bummed about not getting their tour. But the funny thing was that there was actually another helicopter in the area, and he saw me, and he saw that I was landing at this big parking lot. I think it was, a parking lot for big, like trailers and stuff. But because of COVID, it was empty. So he saw me landing there. So he actually landed next to me. And then he asked me if I wanted some help with my passengers, he could bring them back to our airport. So, and I was on the phone with my boss at the time, and I asked him, like, can this guy, so this industry is so small, everybody knows everyone. So he was like, oh yeah, I know that guy. He can fly them back home. So yeah, he flew them back home, and then he came down, landed at me, and, checked that I was okay. And the funny part was that this place where I parked the helicopter was fenced. So it was a big fence around, and it was somebody that was working in the, in a control building. And so I went there, and I told him, like, hey, I parked my helicopter over here. It was Sunday afternoon, nobody could come out. So he was like, you did what? So we had, there was 3 landings right outside where he sat, and he didn't notice anything. So I was like, okay, you're a really good guard.
Yeah, you're really guarding it, keeping it safe.
Yeah, so he didn't notice. I heard they weren't very happy with me landing there, but, I don't know how it would have went if I didn't land. They ended up switching out both the magnetos in the helicopter. Yeah.
Is that what they thought? Okay, so it was the magnetos, that...
Yeah.
I guess if the magnetos are causing problems, I can understand the high manifold pressure. But why and the low rotor RPM, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But why the loss of engine tack? That one doesn't make sense to me.
So, well, the magneto is controlling the engine tack, right? So yeah, I think that was it. But yeah, it was just...
the right magneto.
Yeah.
Or left, whatever.
It was just too many things at one time. So, and, afterwards I was kind of questioning myself, like, oh, should I have just gone to an airspace and landed there? Should I not? And you can always, think, like, why, or what if, or should I, but I did have one of my coworkers, both my coworker, a guy from Robinson, and the mechanic, they all contacted me, and they were like, you did the right thing. Like, people can question your decision, but they were not in this situation. So
yeah, well, congratulations, and great job.
Thank you.
That I agree. That's the right thing. It's much better to land in a parking lot with all those indications. Definitely 100% the right call. Land. And whatever that person told you at the Robinson safety course is true. You have a good working helicopter, and you can land a helicopter anywhere. So, if you have that opportunity, why not? Let me ask you this: what's your experience been flying in LA? Because I fly in New York City, which is very crazy airspace. What's it like out there in LA?
Oh, it's crazy here too.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, so I knew that it was going to be, crowded. I don't think I was really prepared for it when I got here. I Yeah, I remember my first flight, and I was so nervous. It's so congested. It's you know, so many airports, so many airspaces, but I think it made me such much better pilot.
Yeah. Well, talk to me actually about the airspace. So, is LAX the only Bravo out there?
Yes, it's only Bravo up here in LA. There's a Bravo down in San Diego too.
Okay, so you have the LAX Bravo, and then you have some smaller airports, which are some Charlies, and then I'm sure you have some
Yeah.
Deltas.
So right now I fly out of a Charlie, which is John Wayne Airport, and but most of the other airports are Deltas. So even Long Beach Airport is a Delta, which is a little bit weird because I mean they have 3 runways.
That's a lot for a Delta.
Yeah, still a Delta. So yeah.
So let me ask you this: like when let's say you're going on a cross country and you want flight following, do you contact who do you contact? Do you contact LAX Bravo or do you contact the closest Charlie, or is there an entire California approach radar team or something?
No, so we usually just, pass the airports and just talk to the airport.
Oh, okay. So you don't get flight following?
No, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
But it was crazy. So when I flew, so I've been flying for 2 companies here. When I flew for the first company, they were located right next to LAX. So we had, our traffic pattern was a left traffic pattern. If we would have had a right traffic pattern, we would have been on our downwind inside Bravo. That's how close it was.
wow.
Yeah. So we had, this tour that was super popular, and it was a 45-minute tour. And it took us from, Hawthorne Airport, then into Torrance, into Bravo, then into Santa Monica, then into a CTAF, then Burbank, then back to the CTAF, then Bravo again, and then back to Hawthorne, which was in Delta. So it was,
Oh my God.
nine different airspaces in, 45 minutes. So a lot of radio calls.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. New York's crazy, but I don't think we have that much repetition, or we don't switch that commonly. So
Yeah, and then you
I
come
bet
from or Sweden, where you have one tower, and that's that's what you thought.
yeah, and I bet you feel very comfortable on the radios now, huh?
I do. I did not do in the beginning. I mean,
So
yeah.
let me. You have your CFII, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what is your proportion of instruction versus tours? If you had to say how many, what percentage?
So the first company I worked for was mostly tours. They were located right in LA, and a lot of tourists, and even a lot of people that live in LA that just want to see LA and all the tourist attractions from above. So that was majority tours. Now I work down at John Wayne, which is down in Orange County, and for sure majority students now.
So mostly flight instruction.
Yeah, we do have a few tours now and then, but not that many.
What made you because I was pissed off because I know you interviewed at my company, and I was trying to get you to come here. What made you choose California? Why'd you want to go? Because I think I knew you wanted to be there. So what made you go out to the West Coast?
Yeah, so it was a really hard decision to not come to Independent Helicopters because, I knew that you and Christina were there, and I really liked the vibe I got from them. So, but it was, ever since, this whole long trip, I started, in 2012 when I started, fixed wing school in San Diego. I was kind of, I had decided that I wanted to fly in California. And then whenever I was going to do my internship, I went to California first because I figured California has, good weather all the time, warm weather, which we don't have in Sweden. They have the ocean, they have the mountains, it's easy to travel everywhere here. You can go to big as, you can fly there in 15 minutes or, drive there for 3 to 4 hours. Palm Springs, like there's just so much here that I really wanted to experience. So
Yeah, but you have to live in LA.
yeah, well, I'm kind of moved from LA and now I live in Orange County. So,
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, so that was probably the decision for me too. I just really always dreamed about living in California.
Yeah, you seem like a California girl. Like
Yeah.
if it fits. No, now that you're actually in it, how many hours do you have right now?
So I passed 600 last week.
Nice, congratulations.
Thank you.
So, what do you want to do? Where do you see your future? Obviously, you have another year, probably in California or whatever. Yeah, hopefully that works out. Where do you see yourself? What do you want to do?
So my long-term goal is to fly EMS, but right now I'm just trying to enjoy myself. I'm not in a hurry. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I want my hours super fast, and they do anything. I really want to enjoy myself as I'm doing this. That's the whole reason I picked flying helicopters, is because it's fun. I want to keep it fun. So I'm just going to enjoy my time in the US for hopefully another year. And then to do EMS in Sweden, it's usually they want you to have some instrument experience and also to been flying more turbine helicopters. So I will probably, I'm hoping to get a job maybe flying oil rigs in Norway for a little while, and then maybe EMS in the future.
So, well, I actually didn't know Norway had a big oil rig thing. Well, I don't know if it's big or
Yeah.
There's a big market out there.
Yeah.
And are they flying? What type of helicopter are they flying out there?
They fly Sikorsky's.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of our instructors in Sweden was actually working for them.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What? So you're just we get our not that it's easy, but we get our CFI relatively easy here in the US. Would you say it's like equally easy to get your CFI in EASA, and do most people want to be CFIs because it's pretty much like it's almost mandatory at this point in the helicopter world to have your CFI?
Yeah. So I don't think I'm gonna take my CFI in Sweden. I don't have my CFI there or in Europe. I heard it's easier to take your CFI there. It's required more hours, but I heard the CFI training is not that hard. But I never done it, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't think
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Let me. Oh, sorry. When you decide that you want to, so after you do your one more year here in the U.S., if it gets approved, are you going to try to figure out a way to stay here, or are you going to try to go back to Sweden?
I think
a year
I'm
from
going to
now.
go back to Sweden. So my initial plan was only to stay in the US for a year. But then, you start and time passes so fast, and I'm just not done here. But I do have my family back home. I have my friends, my boyfriend wants to move back home as well. He has his job back in Sweden. So yeah, I think I'm going to head back home after my second year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just really trying to dissect it here. When let's say that you do another year here, if you're at 600 hours, maybe at that point you'll be at. I mean, if you can fly another 600 to 1,000 hours this year, what are you going to do when you get back there? Are you going to continue with? I mean, I assume you're going to keep doing helicopters. Are you going to have enough hours to find a job there, or what's that going to look like?
Yeah, so the 1,000-hour mark is a big one, and yeah, now I'm actually accumulating my hours pretty fast. So yeah, I think I'm definitely gonna have to start doing my instrument rating there in order to get one of those jobs. So that's going to be the first step. And I'm hoping that they need more pilots for EMS. They've been talking about, they have a lot of people that are retiring, both like EMS, search and rescue, all that. So I hope I'm just having good timing and can get a job. If not, I could always fall back to instructing again.
Yeah. So you'll have enough hours to figure it out, and you have figured it out. That's how you've gotten this far.
Yeah.
Now this is kind of like just like an open-ended question, and what has it been like being, from your experience, being a female in the helicopter pilot industry? What was it like out there in Sweden, and then when you went to school, and now have you noticed has it been a good experience or a bad experience, and kind of just speak on that?
It's actually a little bit weird because I think being a female pilot in the US is better than in Sweden. And it's a little bit weird because Sweden wants to be so equal in everything. Like equal salaries, equal opportunity, all that. But I feel like helicopter business in Europe hasn't come as far as in the US. I never really, felt it didn't feel different to be a female pilot in the US compared to a male pilot. I didn't really notice anything weird. In Sweden, though, it was kind of like, to be a pilot, you have to prove yourself. You have to be tough. You have to be... a lot of girls that starts in the industry, it feels like they want to prove that they're not that girly. They want to be like, oh, yeah, I go out and I do all these manly things all the time. That's my hobbies. Just to prove themselves. I had experience, so as I was in school, in ground school in Sweden was more like lecture. So it wasn't one-on-one training. It was us sitting in a classroom and we had, a teacher. And while I was in ground school, I was a former flight attendant. I loved walking in my heels. Maybe not stilettos, but, like winter heels. And I remember I got...
What? Wait, hold on. What?
Yeah, well, when we were flying, but like when we did ground school.
No, wait, hold on. I'm talking about the winter heels part. What the hell is a winter heel?
I mean, like, there's difference between heels and heels. You can have stilettos, or you can have, winter shoes with a higher heel.
Okay. I guess I never... I think I've probably seen that. My mom probably has a pair of those.
Yeah, probably.
Well, okay. Yeah. I've never heard of winter heels. Sorry. Okay, keep going.
Yeah.
I don't know where that story was going, but keep going.
Yeah. So I remember I got a comment one time like, "Oh, you're walking in heels and you're a pilot," and that just pissed me off a little bit because I was like, "Well, I'm gonna wear whatever I want to wear. I'm not just because I'm a pilot. I don't have to dress like a man, So that was one thing. I also got a comment from a guy in the industry, and he said, Michelle, you should probably not tell people that you used to work as a flight attendant. It doesn't look good. It doesn't sound good. And I was like, what? This is, it just made me even more want to, be girly.
Why? What was his point with that? That doesn't even make sense.
No, I think, it's just you, as a pilot, in order to make it, you have to prove that you're not girly. You have to prove that you're capable. And I don't know. It's kind of backwards. I didn't expect it to be like that. It wasn't like that when I was working as a flight attendant. When I was a flight attendant, pilots that I was working with on the airlines, they were always, I got to go into the cockpit. I got to ask them about all these questions. They were very supportive. They helped me a lot they still help me a lot. But it was weird. Helicopter industry in Sweden is, I think they need to work on it a little bit more.
Yeah, and yeah, America is very, I think, far along with that, and the leaders with equality in that sense.
Yeah. And maybe
Because you,
it's so many more. I mean, the industry here is so much bigger than it is there. So
yeah,
yeah.
it is. No, this is kind of like the backwards to that, the reverse. What is it like as a male flight attendant in Sweden? Is that a thing? Is there discrimination against that? Is it looked at as a weird thing, or was that normal?
I mean, the majority of the male flight attendants were gay. But it was also, we still had, non-gay male flight attendants. And but I think, the people in that industry, they're so open-minded. They're not scared to talk about, being gay, not being gay, how I think, it's just, very laid back industry. So,
Yeah. Well, and that's actually really interesting. I worked in, I don't know if, let me ask you this, because this is like my podcast and I'm allowed to talk whatever I want. My experience in helicopters, I mean, not that I've been doing it all that long. Me and you have been doing it a relatively similar time period. I haven't encountered, I don't think I've ever met another male, not another, but a gay helicopter pilot. Seems like it's very, I don't know if it's taboo or if it's just, I haven't run into it yet, but it's not, I don't know if it matches the general population. What do you think about that?
Yeah, when you say it, I haven't either, actually. So, I mean, there's a lot of female ones, but never male ones. Yeah. There was also a lot of male flight attendants that were pilots that just wanted to get a job, and as they were trying to get a pilot job, they would work as flight attendants as well.
Okay.
It was kind of
no, that makes sense. But let's talk about Michelle for a little bit. What do you like outside of aviation? What do you like to do? How do you? Because I like to ask this question because I don't think any of us really can. Because like, look at my Instagram my Instagram handle is Pilot Devin. Your Instagram handle is Miss Aviatrix. Like, all of us are always so aviation focused. Like, everything is aviation, aviation, aviation. How do you separate yourself from aviation, and what do you like outside of it?
I mean, I don't feel like I have to separate myself from aviation because I'm kind of aviation, like I worked 4 years in aviation, and the people I worked with, they became a lot of my close friends, kind of like a family. Same thing with helicopters. I mean, it's such a small industry. I thought that, working as a flight attendant, that was a small industry. I was working in Norway, Denmark. I went over to Finland sometimes, and I don't know how many people were working there, but a couple hundreds, and everybody knew everybody. Then I came into the helicopter world, and I realized that this is tiny. Like, even in America, one time it hit me, I was flying in, I was doing a tour, and I was just over Hollywood, and it's a CTAF there, so it's an open frequency, and I was making a radio call, and then I hear another helicopter, and he's like, "Is this Michelle?" So I'm like, what are the odds that I'm, from Sweden, I did my training in Hawaii, and I'm flying in Hollywood, and somebody recognized me on the radio. So, yeah.
I had the exact same thing happen yesterday. I was going to an airport with a CTAF, and there was an airport on the other side of the some random airport, and they were like, "Hey, is that Devin?" And I was like, "Who is that?" And they're like, "Oh, it's just me." And it's like, it's such a small community that, I mean, you just by recognizing voices and seeing pictures, we all know each other. And that's, I mean, when I think about our friend that passed away the other day, it's a really small community. We were roommates, and she went to school with me, and then she was working out. She had a couple different jobs after school. So, I mean, by the time you've been doing this a couple years, a lot of people know you. Like, in the industry, most people know you, which is really cool. But one thing, like, it's really sad because it's so small. But also, one thing you have to be careful with and just be mindful of is not to burn any bridges, because the person that, I don't know, we went to school together, and maybe 2 years from now, you're working at a company, or you're like the CEO of a company, and I come and ask you for a job. So that's why we don't want to speak bad behind each other's back.
And also something that they told me right when I started school in Sweden. They were like, think about this. This is a small industry, and whoever your classmates with now could be your former boss, or, like, could be the one that gives you a reference for a really good job. So
yeah, and that's we won't speak names, but there was someone that I think went to the same school as you, and then she also went to Mauna Loa, and leaving behind a trail of thoughts on people. And if you are a bad egg, your name spreads like wildfire. So anyone that's listening or watching, getting into this industry, just be a good person and be kind, and just know that your name, whether it's good or bad, is going to spread to the masses.
It really will. Yes.
It's...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think also, I know to make it in the industry, it's all about, I want to get my hours. I want to, all that. And it's all good, but you're going to get there. Like, don't stress it too much, I think.
That's a great point. Yeah. It's so hard when you're in flight school.
People to get where you want to be, If you're a cool person, you're going to get there anyway.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually a great point, because, I mean, you need your hours, and that's important too. But even if you have let's say you've got like 2,000 hours. If you have 2 applicants that have 2,000 hours, but you have good relationships with people in the industry, and someone can say, oh, hey, this is Michelle. She's really good. I heard from a friend that she's awesome. Your name gets put to the top of the pile, So
I honestly think that that's how I got into the pilot school in Sweden, because it was a bunch of tests. So, but it was also a interview, and when I was doing the interview, it was actually one of the chiefs of the EMS that was handling the interviews, and I came in, I sat down, and he was looking at my paperwork that I had to fill out, and I had to mention like some references, and he was looking through them, and it was actually one of the pilots that I was working with at the airline, and they knew each other. And I was like, I didn't know who was going to interview me. I didn't know anything, and I didn't know that they knew each other. So he was like, oh, this guy, and we started talking about it, and it's so small. If somebody, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just be mindful of that. So, Michelle, how old are you?
I'm 31, turning 32 this year.
When's your birthday?
July.
Okay, so you got your 32nd birthday coming up. Do you think you're going to be flying helicopters forever? Is this what you want to do?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, but you never know. But yeah, hopefully, I hope so.
Yeah, exactly. The reason I say that is just because I think personally for me, I love flying helicopters, and I want to do it for the foreseeable future. But I think I don't know if monogamous, how like you're supposed to be with one person the rest of your life. I think at least with jobs, I think you should do a bunch of different things, and I have the desire to do a bunch of things. I want to go back, before we kind of wrap it up, I want to go back to the question that I asked you. What do you like outside of when you're not flying helicopters or not thinking about helicopters? What are you doing?
I love traveling, obviously, and I love experiencing. So going on hikes. I love food. I grew up in a restaurant family, so I love going, eating out, and just, I like being surrounded by friends. So, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
I used to play soccer too. I love being active, and we went in Hawaii, played some soccer, played some football.
I think so. I love being friends with you on Snapchat and Instagram because one of the greatest and funniest things I will ever remember about you, Michelle, is you and our friend Agnes. You two had this big golden Chrysler minivan, and what did you call her? Betty or something?
Betty.
Yeah. So Betty was falling apart on the side of the road, and Michelle, you guys found a mechanic somehow, and you would always post videos of you taking this car to the mechanic, and one of the nice things, I don't know if this is sexist to say, but being a pretty girl, you got all. I think you got like some help with the maintenance, right?
Yeah. Well, it was funny because I remember one time I was actually, so we had bought the car and we had some issues, and I just got smoke all out from the engine, and I didn't know what was happening, and I stopped at a parking lot, and the guy that was outside the parking lot, he showed up to be a mechanic, so he helped me out. And then we had some other issues with the car, so I drove there one time, and I was actually on my way to get my safety done on the way back.
The safety inspection, right?
Yeah, so for it to be, drivable. So I was on my way there, and as I was driving there, I was probably speeding, and I was texting at the same time.
Jesus Christ.
And which you shouldn't do, but so yeah, I was doing that, and then we didn't have a back mirror. Because the back mirror had fallen down. So, and I had this cop behind me. And so I started seeing those, blue flashing lights. And in Europe, you don't stop in the middle of the highway. You kind of wait until your next road that you can drive out on. So I kind of looked out and I was like, okay. So I waited till I could drive off the road. And the cop came and he stopped me, and he was like, so how come you didn't stop? And I was like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to. And and then he was like, okay, so I had to show my driver's license and all that. And then he was like, okay. And I told him I'm on my way to safety. So he just looked at our paperwork, and then he left. And I remember you texted me, and you were like, what did you get stopped for? I don't know, because I was speeding, I was texting, and I didn't have, my safety done. So, I don't know, but...
Jesus Christ, Michelle. Well, you know what? Good job. I'm glad you got away with it. But the point I was making is you had that funny car, but I like being friends with you because you're always on vacations. Or experiences and adventures, and now you have this little red car that you and Andy drive around, and you guys are doing all sorts of crazy trips up and down. Oh, and didn't you recently do a big cross country in the helicopter with your company or something?
Oh yeah. So I actually had a friend in Arizona that so we were just like Instagram friends, and he told me about this helicopter that he was buying, and it was, Briley, who has the dog, Bentley the Bulldog. And he was...
Oh, yeah, that helicopter pilot?
Mm-hmm, yeah, so he was selling his helicopter, and my friend was going to buy it, but my friend didn't have a license. So he was like, well, I need somebody that can help me out, fly it back home to Arizona, and he was going to buy it off Canada, and then Briley was going to fly him over to Seattle, but then he didn't have a pilot. So he asked me, and he had also asked one of his other friends that had, a lot of experience in helicopters, and I've just gotten to California. I'd working here for 3 months maybe. So I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to fly by myself and a student all the way from Seattle down to Arizona. So I kind of said like, oh, it's nice if this other guy can come along as well. But so he just texted me like the night before, I think, like, oh, our paperwork just finished. If you want to come to Seattle tomorrow. So I just booked a trip and I flew it back. So it was like,
by yourself?
No, so it was me, him, and then another pilot. So it took us 3 days. So it was kind of nice being 3 people.
Yeah, I mean that's like a lot of brains and a lot of aviation
And
people
it was
that can.
fun because we were so this other pilot they were flying out of Arizona, and it's high density, all those mountains. So we were flying in Sedona, by all the mountains there. It was super cool.
Yeah. Oh, I thought that was it. But how many? So it was 3 days, and how much flight time did you get out of that?
I got about 12 hours myself.
Nice.
Yeah.
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 So it was like what, 12, 24, 36 hours of flight time?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, probably like 24 maybe.
Oh, so you flew a lot of it.
Yeah, because the other guy was a student, so he couldn't fly himself.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Michelle, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Shout yourself out. Shout out your Instagram because it's very aesthetic and it's very pretty. Give it a shout out.
Thank you. Well, it's Miss Aviatrix, so ms.aviatrix with an X.
How you can't? So you spell MS but not aviatrix? Spell it. Wait, I have to think. AVITRIX. How'd you come up with that name? What does aviatrix mean?
So a male aviator is an aviator, but a female aviator is an aviatrice. So I tried to have the aviatrice, but somebody already had it. And then I was thinking, well, aviatrix with an X is cool. And that was already taken. And my former Instagram name was Miss Michelle or something like that. MS. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to be Miss Aviatrix then. So, yeah.
That's pretty cool. It's a very recognizable Instagram name. Yeah. So everyone...
all my former classmates, they had like Helly... something. Everybody was Helly something. And I was like, well, I'm not just Helly because I also like airplanes, even though I prefer helicopters. I did work as a flight attendant, so I'm more of an aviatrice.
Would you consider getting your fixed wing stuff?
I've been thinking about it, and I mean, if maybe, but I was flying with one of my students. Her dad owns a bunch of airplanes, and I actually got to fly a little bit with him. And I thought it was a little bit scary now when I started flying airplanes again because you don't see anything, like everything is covered so much. It's not like a helicopter where you see every little inch that you're doing. But I mean, airplanes are cool too. I don't think I need it, but maybe for the fun of it. Would you?
Yeah, I had the exact same experience when I got like a Cessna 152 or 172 or 182 even. That's a scary airplane because like taxiing, you can't see anything. Takeoff, I mean, the whole time you can't see anything. Like you're just looking at the sky. And now I'm spoiled like in a helicopter because I can see everything always. And also if I have an engine failure, I can just set it down anywhere. I mean, obviously because I've got a lot of experience in helicopters, I feel comfortable. But yes, I would go get my fixed wing stuff, and I want to, and I plan to. But I think, I mean, maybe I can speak on it more when I'm an airplane pilot. But I think helicopters are safer, just because there's more options, and also being able to see, like when you're coming in for landing, or I guess when you're taking off, or just anything is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on. Also, one more shout out before we go. Shout out your boyfriend's Instagram because honestly, he has some of the best artwork I think I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm not being like I'm not just saying that. I'm so serious. He has, like I saw on your Instagram today, he has incredible artwork. Is it up for? Yeah, look at that. If you guys are looking at the podcast, there's this really beautiful painting behind Michelle. Are there any of those up for sale?
So he's right now he's just trying to paint a bunch so that he can put it on like maybe an art show. Because he's been requested to have art shows before, and in the beginning when he was painting, he didn't plan to paint. He just kind of, the funny story behind it is that I did my ATP back home in Sweden, and we had an open floor plan with a kitchen and a living room, and he wasn't allowed to make any noise. No TV, no like video games, anything. So and we needed a painting for home, so we just tried to paint.
Wait, why wasn't he allowed to make noise?
Because I couldn't concentrate.
Oh, while you were studying.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was your agreement with him. I see.
Yeah. So, and we also needed a painting, and everything that I liked was super expensive. So we're like, oh, let's just paint something ourselves. So I was thinking, just splash it out, like buy a canvas and splash. And so I bought all this color, and we sat down one night and colored or painted, and he was really good. And I was like, have you done this before? And he was like, no, I'm just like cluttering. Like, this looks really good. So I told him that he needed to make the painting, and he made a painting that we were just going to have for ourselves. And then he thought it was really like meditating to paint. And then people that came to our house or apartment, they were like, this is really good. Can we buy this? And so he started, the first painting he sold was like, we did like a little auction. And then he just continued. And but it was always somebody who ordered something, like, oh, I want this, I want that. And so he made a painting, he sold it. Then he made the next one and he sold it. So then when he was requested to have an art show, he never had anything to show. So now he's trying to just save up a little bit, and then hopefully he can show it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he could sell some of those for like an outrageous amount. They are incredible artwork.
It's funny because I just requested him. So the first painting I asked him to do was actually of a helicopter, and he never did. So that's what he's working on now. He's doing one with a helicopter and some palm trees and stuff like that.
So when that's done, send me a picture of it, and I'll post it on the Chopper Talk Instagram. But
his Instagram name is Andy N Art, so it's ANDYNART.
Okay.
Yeah.
Andy N Art. You guys go check it out. I will leave the link in the description of the YouTube video. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on. This was so fun. You are one of my best friends. I'm so grateful for you. And everyone, just hold each other near and dear. Take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. What we do is very fun, and we've got great memories, but we never know when it is our time. So just tread lightly and try to have fun and enjoy your life, and that's what we're doing right now. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Devin.
Bye.
Bye.